The world needs ways to reduce carbon emissions,
especially for heavy industry.
We're working on solutions in our own operations,
like carbon capture
and clean energy from hydrogen.
So who are we?
Believe it or not, ExxonMobil. And these solutions could help industries like this.
Or this.
Or this.
Heavy industry with low emissions. Let's deliver.
Weekly MTG and your first look at murders at Karlov Manor. I'm your host, Blake Rasmussen, and I'll be your guide to the case files of a string of mysterious killings happening around Ravnica. Now, before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about why we're here. This is what we call a first look. This is the opportunity for local game stores to get a look at the set and figure out how deep they want to go down this rabbit hole. Now, if you see anything that intrigues you, certainly let your local game store know so that they can figure out how deep they want to go into this mystery. Now, certainly, we need you to go as deep as possible because you, in Murders at Karlov Manor, play the role of a detective on Ravnica, solving a string of murders of some pretty important people. Now, you're not going to be working alone. You're going to have the help of the entire Ravnican Detective Agency, including its lead detective, Alquist Proft, and two of his associates, not depicted here. We're going to meet the detectives shortly. But first, like any good investigation, we need to start by interviewing our rogues gallery, our usual suspects, the individuals who have something to hide and everything to share to help your investigation. Now, the murderer may or may not be among these individuals, but certainly you'll want to delve into their secrets and pull out any clues they may have to offer. Now, as with any mystery this vexing, you'll probably want to start with some more obvious places. So I recommend starting with Massacre Girl. She knows her way around murder and has a trail of bodies behind her as long as 10th Street itself. And you'll want to make sure that she's not involved. Now, these murders are a bit too mysterious, not out there for Massacre Girl. They're not quite showy enough. So you'll certainly want to interview the Demir as well. So we'll talk to Atrata. Now, whether or not she's involved, the Demir trade in secrets. So they'll certainly know a thing or two about what is happening in Ravnica. Now, you'll also want to keep your ear to the streets. And no one knows the streets better than Krenko, Ravnica's own mob boss. You'll want to pick his brain about the comings and goings of 10th Street and all of its residents. But don't stop there. You'll want to head under the streets as well to talk to the Golgari and Izoni. They certainly know a thing or two about death and have a penchant for dead bodies. Maybe they're involved, maybe they can just shed some light on exactly what's happening with all of these corpses turning up. Now, we'll also want to circle back to the Rakdos cult because, you know what? They like death. And our own femme fatale, Judith, certainly has some secrets about murder that she can shed some light on. But we don't want to stick to just the obvious avenues. We'll want to meet some new faces in some less obvious places. So you'll want to investigate and ransack the lab of one Kylox from the, oh my gosh, the Is It Guild. Lost the trailer. I love Is It. But you'll want to talk to Kylox and check out his lab. I think he might be a little deeply involved in something that he shouldn't be. Now, you'll want to leave no stone unturned, and you'll want to talk to Tolsmir as well. One of Ravnica's heroes can certainly sniff out some clues along the way. Now, we've been building up to this one, but there's no getting around it. You're going to have to talk to Rakdos. He's been around since the signing of the Guild Pact, and even before then, as one of Ravnica's oldest residents. Again, this murder might be a bit too subtle for Rakdos, but he knows everything about everything, and he's been around a long time, so you'll want to interview him. Also, know that no one in Ravnica is above the law, not even Aurelia, so you'll want to spend some time talking with this arbiter of justice and making sure that she hasn't gone too far this time. Now, assisting you on this case will be Planeswalker Kaya, who has experience with this sort of investigation and with some spirits as well. The junior detective on this case will be Kellen, a little inquisitive prodigy who's been traipsing about the multiverse. You've met him a few times now. He's back in Murders at Karlov Manor to help with your investigation. But leading the investigation is Ravnica's premier detective, Alquist Proft, a master sleuth, a master of deduction. And we're going to meet his card right here, right now. We're going to get into it. This is Alquist Proft, Master Sleuth. He's a 3/3 legendary creature, human detective. That's right, we are introducing the detective creature type in Murders at Karlov Manor. For 1, a white and a blue, you get a 3/3 with vigilance, and when Alquist Proft, Master Sleuth, enters the battlefield, of course, you investigate. And then for X, a white, blue, tap, sacrifice a clue, you draw X cards and gain X life. Because it's not only Sphinxes on Ravnica who can have revelations. Now, Alquist is not the only detective on Ravnica. There is, of course, you, as well as a slew of detectives investigating the case. Here we have Wojak Investigator, an angel detective for 2 and a white, for a 2/4 flying vigilance, who at the beginning of your upkeep helps you investigate once for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. But we're going to have detectives all up and down the rarity spectrum, including this little junior detective who's going to look a little familiar. We have a novice inspector. For a single white mana, you get a 1/2 human detective, and when novice inspector enters the battlefield, investigate. It seems simple, but it's going to feel very familiar to a powerful card that we've seen in the past. Now, speaking of powerful cards that we've seen in the past, note that this is not a guild set. Like most sets unlike most sets set on Ravnica, Murders at Karlov Manor is not focused on the guild. It really is focused on driving this murder mystery and having you solve the case. However, we are going to see some familiar sights and familiar magic on Ravnica, including a spell that has not seen the light of day from the Boros Legion since we originally visited Ravnica. That's right, Lightning Helix is coming back to standard. 2 mana, a red and a white, for an instant that deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life, is a powerful spell that you will want to add to your arsenal for standard. Now, don't be shocked if you see more reprints of this nature coming in Murders at Karlov Manor. We'll certainly reveal more of them as we head towards the debut, which is coming on January 16th. Now, we've started to show you some preview cards. This is the portion of the show we're going to run through a bunch of preview cards. We're going to run through a bunch of treatments and a bunch of ways that Murders at Karlov Manor immerses you in the mystery happening in Ravnica right now. One of the ways that we do that is this set has more story spotlight cards than most sets. So we're going to take a look at a few of them, as well as the special story spotlight treatment going on. So first up, we have Fanatical Strength. 1 and a green for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. You're going to see story spotlight cards on some simple commons like this, some complex rares, and more. And we'll piece this all together as we go along. Next up, Deduce. Maybe my favorite common from the set. Simple card, 1 and a blue, draw a card, investigate. Yep, that's Alquist Proft right there, picking up the pieces of the puzzle along the way. Then we have Demand Answers. Certainly a very important, there we are. Demand Answers, a very important moment for Aurelia, for the Rakdos. We'll learn more about what's happening in this story spotlight as we go through the story of Murders at Karlov Manor. Now, let's show off the story spotlight treatment. Each of these lets you take a magnifying glass to this moment. These are all going to be non-creature cards that are taking a closer look at the story moment. Next up, we're going to meet some familiar characters. So we talked about a few of these up top, but guild leaders get their own spotlight in this set. So let's take a look at Aurelia, the Law Above. 3, a red and a white for a 4/4 legendary creature, angel. Flying, vigilance, haste, all good words. When a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. That's whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. And whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia, the Law Above, deals 3 damage to each of your opponents, and you gain 3 life. A little bit of that Lightning Helix Magic right there. We're also going to see Rakdos, the patron of chaos, a legendary creature demon. For 4, a black and a red, it's a 6/6, flying, trample. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land, not 2 non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. Now, we are also going to get some really cool basic lands in this set, of course. These are the impossible lands that show a view of the Ravnica city that you have not seen before. So here we see the plains, and then let's take a look at all 5 of them across there. Gorgeous and impossible looking. Now, the reason we're showing these off to you is because we are going to talk a little bit about the Play Booster. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Play Booster, I recommend checking out our videos and articles on Play Boosters in the past. And we're going to be talking about it as we run up to the set Murders at Karlov Manor, of course. But to give you a refresher, we're going to show you 2 sample Play Boosters containing Murders at Karlov Manor cards, hence all the previews today. We're going to show you sort of the wavelength. We're going to start with an average booster. What sort of an average booster would look like. This is an average Play Booster. You're going to have slots 1 through 6 are going to be commons. Slot number 7 could be the list or a common. In this case, in our average booster, it's most likely to be a common. Then you're going to have those 3 uncommons there. Slot 11 is going to be a rare or a mythic rare. In this case, our esteemed detective, Alquist Proth, makes an appearance. Slot number 12 is going to be a basic land. Now, that can be a regular basic land like you see here, or it can be an impossible basic land. Slot number 13 is going to be a non-foil wildcard. So this is often where you're going to see one of our Booster Fun treatments, including these Magnifying Story Spotlight cards. Slot number 14 will be a foil wildcard. It could be any number of things. Here we have a Curious Cadaver. Don't worry about pausing and enhancing any of these cards. We are going to look at each of the cards, even the ones in the background on here. We're going to look at these individually. So we'll talk about Curious Cadaver in a moment as well. Slot 15 will be an add card, a token card, a help card, or an art card. Here we see our detective token. Yeah, we're going to have token creatures that create detectives. All right, now let's look at sort of the best case scenario Play Booster. So again, we're going to have those slots 1 through 6 will be common. Slot number 7 in the best case scenario will contain a list card. In this case, one of the list cards coming in Murders at Karlov Manor is going to be Crashing Footfalls. Now, a reminder that the list cards now are, these are special guests. And special guests have their own set symbol, their own numbering, continuing on from previous sets. So Crashing Footballs has new art here, new numbering, all that jazz. Slot 8 through 10 is going to be still uncommons here. Slot 11, a rare or mythic rare. Here we get Wojek Investigator again. Slot number 12, basic land. Your best case scenario is one of those fancy impossible lands. Slot number 13, we're going to talk about that treatment in a moment. But that is the non-foil wild card. That is a dossier treatment. Slot number 14, the foil wild card. Here we have the Guild Leaders City cards treatment. We'll talk more about those in a second as well. Slot 15, again, your best case scenario is one of those art cards. Here we have Deduce with the gold signature. So a reminder that Play Boosters take the place of both draft and set boosters combined into one booster. So Murders at Karlov Manor will not have draft boosters. It will not have set boosters. It will just have the Play Booster to make things cleaner and simpler, and still pretty cool. All right, so now let's take a look at some of those commons and uncommons that we saw in the pack or saw parts of in the pack. So we've got Burden of Proof there on the left, 1 and a blue for an enchantment or a flash enchanted creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's a detective you control. Otherwise, it has base power and toughness 1/1 and can't block detectives. There are a lot of cool top-down designs in this set that make you feel like you are a Ravnica detective, because you are. We need your help solving this case. This Curious Cadaver is 2, a blue and a black for a 3/1 zombie detective. It's not even my favorite detective creature type in this set. That's Weird Detective. There's a Weird Detective in this set. Flying. When you sacrifice a clue, return Curious Cadaver from your graveyard to your hand. Then we've got Gleaming Gear Drake over there. Blue and a red for a 1/1 artifact creature Drake. Flying. When it enters the battlefield, you investigate, and whenever you sacrifice an artifact, like a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on Gleaming Gear Drake. Finally, on the right there, Meddling Youths, maybe my favorite concept for a card in this set. 3, a red and a white. It's a 4/5. It has haste. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, investigate, and I think we have to read the flavor text on this one. Well, if it isn't mean old Mr. Larkbottom, who's always been so eager to have the only dumpling stall in Axblood Alley. Those meddling youths always getting involved. We have a few more cards to show off from the packs. We have Benthic Criminologists, so those are some merfolk wizards. They're 4/5. Whenever they enter the battlefield or attack, you may sacrifice an artifact, like a clue. If you do, draw a card. Then we've got Hotshot Investigators, 5 and a blue for some Vedalken Detectives. They're 4/4s. When they enter the battlefield, return up to 1 other target creature to its owner's hand. If you do, investigate. Then we have Out Cold, 3 and a blue for an instant that cannot be countered. And you get to tap up to 2 target creatures and put a stun counter on each of them and investigate. Topiary Panther is a plant cat, great type line. For 4 green and a green, it's a 6/5 trample, basic land cycling. And finally, we have a reprint over there on the right side, Magnifying Glass. It is an artifact that taps for a colorless or 4, tap and investigate, and you get a clue. Great little mana rock there. All right, now we're going to look at the family packaging shot. That's one of the things we do in this first look is get all the packaging out there. So this is what the packaging is going to look like. Now, if you pull out your magnifying glass and look closely, you may be able to discern some clues about what the commander decks are all about. So we have that Naya deck there called Deadly Disguise, where you disguise creatures. You're going to learn a little bit more about that, but suffice to say, some creatures might be face down. Then you've got the Revenant Black-Blue deck right there. You're going to be doing some surveilling. Deep Sea Clues, or Deep Clue Sea. Far more clever than Deep Sea Clues. You're going to be doing some investigating and using your clues in some wild ways. Blame Game is one of my favorite themes. You are going to be goading your foes and pointing out who you think has done it. Now, let's take a look at some of the booster fun. So in the play boosters, we saw a sort of preview of some of the booster fun. We already talked about the story spotlight cards, but we're going to run through a few more examples of all of these cards, talk a little bit more about them. So first up, we have the Buy a Box Wojak Investigator, who we've met already. We get the extended treatment with new art by Greg Staples. This is sure to be a powerful card, whether you're looking for angel synergies or detective synergies or clue synergies, or just looking to draw a bunch of cards in white. Wojak Investigator is also going to get what we're calling the dossier treatment. So when we talked about going through our files on this case, this is what we're talking about. So each of these creature cards is mocked up to look like a dossier on that individual. So Wojak Investigator, Alquist Prof, Aurelia Above the Law, and Rakdos, Patron of Chaos are some of the individuals that we are looking closer into. Now, it's not just rares that get this treatment, but we also have some uncommon creatures who will also get the dossier treatment. So here we see, we'll see the next one. There we are, Curious Cadaver, Gleaming Gear Drake, and Meddling Youths. Again, the Meddling Youths, you gotta read the flavor text. Chaotic, but surprisingly fearless, often seen in the company of a strangely intelligent hound. So each of these will give you more information on the case that you're seeking. But you're going to have to look deeper on some of these dossier cards because there's an invisible ink treatment. Let's take a little look. This is Alquist Prof. If you look real close and then shine a little light on it. So each of these invisible ink treatment cards are going to help you uncover the killer and learn a little bit more about the case before us. Now, you also saw a treatment that may look familiar from March of the Machine. These are the Ravnica City cards. There are only 7 cards that get this treatment, including Aurelia and Rakdos that we saw earlier. These are going to be 6 guild leaders, as well as the Guild Pact himself, Niv Mizzet, are all going to get this treatment. So only 7 of these will get the Ravnica City treatment. And each of these will additionally come in a serialized version. So we've got a video of Aurelia serialized. So there's going to be 7 of these cards serialized out of 250 guild leaders and Niv Mizzet only in this treatment. Now, it would not be a murder mystery without searching for clues. And so for this set, we've partnered with Clue, the game that Hasbro, our company, also puts out. We've got Ravnica Clue Edition, and this is going to be a fantastic mix of Magic and Clue. If you're a fan of Clue, like I am, this is going to scratch a particular itch. So we're going to talk more about the rules as we get closer to January 16th, or on January 16th. Actually, we're going to talk about this one, I think, on January 23rd. But basically, the way Ravnica Clue Edition is going to work is you're going to get some packs, much like Jumpstart, shuffle them together, play a game. There will also be some clues, like Clue, and you're going to have to figure out the person, place, and weapon for who done it. So you're going to play a game of Magic, and in doing certain things in the game, you're going to unlock the ability to ask questions, much like you do in the game of Clue. And if you make an accusation with the right person, place, and weapon, you will actually win the game that way by solving the case. Now, there's going to be some individual cards in this. Let's take a look at a few of them. First up, we've got Senator Peacock. So these are all the beloved Clue characters reimagined for Magic. So Senator Peacock, 3, a blue and a blue, for a 3/4 legendary creature, human advisor. Artifacts you control are clues in addition to their other types, and have 2. Sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So you may accuse Senator Peacock of being the murderer. Now we're also going to see the murder weapon and the room. So let's see our next card. So this is the Lead Pipe. This is a clue equipment. It costs a single black mana. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, and whenever a equipped creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. And you can sacrifice the Lead Pipe to draw a card, because it's a clue. You get it? Now, the weapons, there are rooms, there are suspects, there are weapons. The weapons alone are actually found in the main set of Karlov Manor. So Lead Pipe will actually be also found in the main set of Murders at Karlov Manor, along with things like rope and knife and all your classic clue weapons. Finally, for locations, we have Dining Room. You'll see more of these, of course, but Dining Room enters the battlefield tap. You can tap to add red or a black, and then, much like Magnifying Glass we saw before, 4 and a tap, and you can investigate and find another clue. So you'll play a game of Magic, you'll try to solve the murder, and you can also win by just playing Magic. That happens as well. Now, as a bonus, Ravnica Clue Edition. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Murders at Karlov Manor does not have Shocklands in it. You heard it here first. But that's because Ravnica Clue Edition is going to scratch that itch a little bit, and we're going to have Shocklands in Ravnica Clue Edition. So they are going to be made up to look like clue rooms. So we're going to have steam vents here, Land, Island, Mountain, and it looks very much like a place in the mansion that a murder might happen. So one of those is going to come with each Ravnica Clue Edition. I'll also note you may see us refer to this as Ravnica Clue Edition or Ravnica Cluedo Edition. Around the world, it's known as either Clue or Cluedo, and we're going to follow suit. So you may see Cluedo, you may see Clue. It's going to be the same fantastically cool product. This one's going to come out a little bit after Murders at Karlov Manor. Again, we'll talk more about this as we get closer to January 16th. Moving along, I noted earlier that there is a larger mystery afoot. And as part of this set, not only are you solving a series of murders, but there is a mystery woven into the set itself. In fact, there are a series of puzzles that you are going to solve. They're going to be woven into the set. There's going to be, they're going to be able to find bits and pieces of it on social, parts of it on the card, parts of it in other places. That particular puzzle will begin at pre-release, but you can start preparing now. It's going to be a series of, I believe, 15 puzzles and then one meta puzzle. And once it is solved, it will unlock information about the future of Magic. Now, if you're itching to get into this mystery, we're right there with you. So much so that the very first story, the first episode of the Murders at Karlov Manor story is going to be up today after the conclusion of this program. Episode 1 for the Murders at Karlov Manor will go up on dailymtg.com this morning. You'll definitely want to check that out. And then when we start getting closer to January 16th, we're going to roll out the rest of the story, one story at a time, culminating in a couple stories. We're going to have a big reveal on debut day on January 16th, and then a couple stories after that even. So you'll be able to play along and learn more about the mystery as it unravels as we head into Murders at Karlov Manor. Finally, one last call out. Murders at Karlov Manor is going to come out ahead of MagicCon Chicago, and MagicCon Chicago is going to be the place to be for playing with Murders at Karlov Manor. Not only is the Pro Tour going to feature Murders at Karlov Manor, but there is a 75K standard event that Murders at Karlov Manor will be first legal for. You'll be able to play some of those spells like Lightning Helix, like the new Junior Investigator Novice Inspector, as well as a slew of other mysterious and powerful cards heading into that. So head to mtgfestivals.com for more information on that. That is everything we have to reveal today, but I trust that you'll begin your investigation as soon as possible. We have the debut coming on January 16th, but look for the story before that. Definitely head to dailymtg.com today to read the first episode and learn more about the mystery at Murders at Karlov Manor. Thanks for tuning in. Next week, we'll be back with a debut for Ravnica Remastered. It's all Ravnica all the time here in December. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.